Is Islam compatible with the UK?
I think this question has multiple levels to it, and the compatibility can be gauged on whether Islam is being taken via scripture or is Islam taken by its cultural sort of like premises. So, in my opinion, I'm an ex-Muslim. I'm an ex-Muslim from Saudi Arabia, so I've gone through it all. I've lived in Sharia law, which is like true actual Sharia law, and that wasn't fun. That was quite difficult, and it's just like very limiting to free speech and limiting to freedom of expression and freedom of being oneself. But is Islam itself the problem, or or are theocratic governments the issue? That's where the question comes to me. I think because the UK is a secular state and it doesn't segregate whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, whatever. I think Islam can be compatible, but cultural provisions need to happen in order for Islam to be fully compatible with the UK. I'm pro-immigration and pro everyone else who believes in whatever they want, but I feel like Sharia law does not have a place in the West, and I'm not insinuating that this is what's happening, but what I think is that Islam needs to sort of amalgamate and reform into a societally acceptable sort of form.
But if it reforms, does that not move away from scripture?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you could argue that Christianity has done some sort of reform. The Protestant move has sort of like changed how this scripture is interpreted. I think interpretation is more important than actually changing what the scripture says, because Islam is a religion with many, many denominations and many interpretations, which could range from very left-wing and very sort of like lax to extremely extreme, you know. So I think if a more mild version of Islam is adapted to this society, then yeah, it could work. I mean, it is certainly working right now, although some people are facing some of the issues that come with being a Muslim. For example, women are being covered, like they're being forced to cover their faces by their husbands. They're not able to go out, whatnot. But I feel like there is still space for a more progressive version of Islam.
Do you think Sharia law could save the UK?
No.
And why not?
Because I think Sharia law in its basic form and its like fundamental form is quite extreme. Under Sharia law, I would have been executed in Saudi for being an apostate, and I would have been also possibly executed for being bisexual. So it's like, it's something that limits people's freedom. In my opinion, my moral compass goes like this. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't harm anyone, and I feel like Sharia law sort of kind of violates that for me. So yeah, I don't think Sharia law is compatible with a secular and progressive society in its fundamental form.
It's crazy you say that, because not the person I spoke to, but the person before was a lady, and she said that Sharia law would save the UK because it has great rules for like women in society. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think she might need to actually read into it again. To be fair, like I come from the place where Sharia law formed. I've lived it, so it's a bit different to someone that's been born here and been given sort of like the kind of pampered up version. But yeah, in its basic form, it can be weaponized against minorities and people who are, you know, in need of, people who are just can be marginalized because of it. And I think, Sharia law has got no place here in its fundamental form. And yeah.
What do you think is the UK citizens' problem with Islam?
I think a lot of the mishaps that happen on the news and things and crimes are linked indirectly or directly to Muslims, which therefore gets people thinking that it is Islam, the religion itself, doing all the harm. I think there may or may not be a part of that, but it's also, there's a huge anti-immigration rhetoric that's being pushed, and I feel like that's also linked to the religion. Obviously you're asking someone who's an ex-Muslim, I would say Islam for me is just like a really difficult religion to manage, because it's got, like in the scripture, the scripture could be like literally interpreted to be very extreme. Like you've got really difficult things to actually cover up in the scripture. But yeah, I feel like that's where the sentiment is sort of growing from, and a lot of the news is kind of skewed towards that. But I feel like what the world needs is understanding, and people need to make peace with each other. And I feel this should be on both sides. Muslims should move towards more progression, and people who are anti-Muslim should sort of understand what the cultural context is.
Last question I'll ask you: why do you think why do you think Islam has a bad reputation in the UK?
Why does it have a bad reputation? I mean, Islam has a bad reputation in virtually all of the Western countries. It's linked with many acts that are not compatible with, Western values. For me, like, if Islam does have a bad reputation, then it probably deserves it. Not the Muslims, but Islam itself, the religion, because it is a religion that can promote extremism and can promote oppression. And yeah, I think that stems from that. Like, if you look at many events in the world that happened where terrorism is involved, Islam is quite literally on the headlines. And I feel like I'm not painting Muslims as terrorists, not whatsoever. A lot of my friends are Muslim, but I'm saying that some fundamental and very extreme versions of Islam can lead towards that path of thought, especially with vulnerable people that feel like they need a feeling of belonging to something. Vulnerable people can turn quite dangerous because Islam gives that feeling of belonging and feeling of just like, okay, I found what it all is about, and now I have to do this, and that in order for me to reach eternal heaven or whatever. So, yeah, it can be interpreted to be dangerous.
Thank you.
No worries.